actually, what we want to talk about is something that's on everyone's mind, and what we were talking about earlier, which is basically the, how AI impacts us and how we create confidence in the environment as increasingly unpredictability continues to happen in our environment. And and I just talked about, there's a lot of discussion on AI and about a buzzword about that in regards to what does it do. But AI for, I would say, the finance organization is inevitable. It's evolving as basically the finance leaders are evolving. We are no longer bookkeepers. We are the individuals that are the strategic leaders in order to lead the company forward. And that's how AI helps us actually in order for us to be able to enhance predictability, be able to basically have things with more speed and have clarity around it. And clarity is not just basically on speed only, it's on execution. And that's basically actually what we look at from AI when it comes to Emburse and basically how the environment is looking at AI. So the background on me, I've been in the field for like 30-something years, worked with some major private equity firms, Bain Capital, TB, and others, and I've seen so much from a transformational perspective in regards to how the economy has evolved. I think before lunch there was a tremendous presentation, actually that a CFO presented that showed the peaks and the valleys of the environment and what we have to do as CFOs to weather that storm. And I can happily say I've done that, and I'm not going to say pretty much that it's a bad economy situation is basically the best thing for the CFO, because that's not something I want, but that's something we have to prepare for and make sure we are on top of in order to make the right decision, not just basically for our leaders, but for our team, for our employees. AI is moving, and for the last, I'll say, few years, AI from a finance has largely been a tool, something that sits alongside existing processes. But what we're seeing now is a shift. AI is now moving from a tool to infrastructure. It's here to stay. It's not experimental, it's operational. Finance teams are moving beyond dashboards that are simply report what happened towards systems that actively support decision making. And increasingly, those systems don't just detect issues, they prevent them. And in some cases, they resolve them automatically. That's the fundamental shift in how finance systems operate today. It's how we can be able to be more on the proactive side of the house, provide actually the solutions that we can be able to make the right decisions and be more of the strategic decision leader versus actually crunching numbers and being reactive. What does that mean? When you look at finance, the old cliche was financial steward and gatekeeper. We're no longer that, guys. Everything has evolved. Historically, finance was often positioned as the steward of financial reporting. But today, expectation is much broader. The board is looking for us as not just the CFO, but as the operational leader for the business. We are the individuals that are working with every leader in the organization to ensure the end result actually is a happy situation for the company, for our employees, and for our investors. That's what we are today. We are system architects, and we are spend orchestrators. Volatility is the operating environment, and that's not something we can avoid. It's always going to be here. It's always going to be something that we have to weather. And the reason this matters is so much why right now is simple. Volatility has become the default operating environment. We're navigating cost volatility, constant regulatory change, pressure on talent, AI compressing decision cycles, and rising expectation from boards and investors. In this environment, confidence doesn't come from predicting the future perfectly. Confidence comes from having the clarity in the moment, real time. Clarity about risk, clarity about cash, clarity about what is happening across business in real time is essential. in order for us to make the right decisions at the time we need to. It's about being proactive, not reactive. The levers on a business, for us as finance leaders is pretty simple. Revenue. Business make revenue, life is good. However, you can have revenue, but you're not managing the cost side of the aspect. So it's for us as finance leaders on managing the cost aspect. And with that, as finance leaders, it's what keeps us up at night. And that's risk, I'll say, mitigation. What we can do in order to mitigate risk. And then also enhancing efficiencies. It's always about scale. It's always about trying to be more efficient to drive up operating leverage and the operating margin. The challenge is that these levers are deeply interconnected. If you optimize one in isolation, you often create fragility somewhere else in the system. This is where AI-powered systems become the change in the equation. The real value of AI doesn't come from automating a single workflow. It comes from embedding intelligence across the entire financial ecosystem so that levers stay aligned. Insight versus expectation. Let's talk about the common challenge inside finance organizations. Many processes today are still built around inspection rather than insight. Manual reviews, reactive controls, back and forth corrections, errors caught after the fact. Take something as a simple expense report. In many organizations, that single expense report touches multiple people. And I've been around a long time to experience that in regards to the paper trail that it goes through. And the question I often ask finance leaders is this: how much time is your team spending correcting errors that could have been prevented in the first place? Because if AI is layered on top of broken processes, you don't create efficiency, you just automate inefficiency. This reactive model creates three things: friction, delay, and exposure. Documentation issues are caught late, verification becomes manual, corrections happen after submission, and in many finance teams, roughly 85% of the work is rule-based, which raises an important question. If the majority of these tasks are rule-based, why are highly trained financial professionals still performing them? This is exactly what we see across the finance teams across where we work with globally at Emburse. Organizations are shifting away from the reactive oversight and toward AI-powered financial systems that operate early in the workflow. Instead of correcting problems after they happen, they guide decisions before the errors occur. When we think about spend management through AI, the AI lens, there are 4 stages: detect, prevent, optimize, and execute. Historically, finance focused heavily on detection, auditing transactions after payment. But the real opportunity is shifting controls early in the process. Pre-submission guidance reduces friction. Post-submission intelligence improves oversight. And execution is where the next transformation is happening. I want to wait for this to come up. All right, the model becomes much more powerful when you look at the full workflow. At the beginning, systems can see capturing, interpreting financial activity. Then they guide, helping employees submit compliance spend in real time, which is essential. Then they optimize, identifying risk patterns and anomalies. And finally, they execute. This is where payment and financial settlement become part of the same intelligent workflow. For many organizations today, outbound payments are still fragmented. Employee reimbursements in one system, bank portals in another, and often finance team only reconcile what happened after the money has already left the business. What we're seeing now is an emergence of more unified model. One where payment execution happens in a single governed workflow and validate code and approve spend. That's exactly the direction we're moving with Emburse Pay. Emburse Pay brings vendor payments, employee reimbursements into a single platform, giving finance teams real-time visibility and control across all outbound spend. Instead of exploring payment files and separate bank portals and managing disconnected approvals, everything happens in one control environment. What does that mean? That means a single source truth of outbound spend, real-time visibility in cash flow and payment status, strong governance before funds leave the business, which is vital, and faster, I'll say, reimbursement experiences for employees. The key shift here is that payments are no longer separate from spend management. They become part of the same intelligent financial infrastructure. For the last several years, AI in finance has focused on insight, flagging anomalies, surfacing trends, and identifying risk. Then it evolved into guidance, recommending, coding, highlighting exceptions, and improving approvals. But the real transformation happens when AI moves into execution. When systems just don't flag issues, they resolve them. With Emburse Pay, we're expanding into managed supplier payments, intelligent reimbursement, embedding policy, rail selection, compliance, settlement directly into the payment workflow. Not separate from spend management, but unified within it. This is the shift we're leading, where payments become autonomous, governed, and fully visible across your entire outbound spend. In this new model, AI handles the inspection layer, the rule-based tasks, the repetitive verification work, which typically represents around 85% of operational activity. The remaining 15% is ambiguous decisions, that strategic trade-offs that where human judgment remains essential. So the question for finance leaders are, if your team suddenly gained 40% or so of additional capacity, where you're willing to reinvest it? When financial systems become AI-powered, several things happen. Data becomes cleaner. Exposure decreases. Financial cycles accelerate. Forecasting becomes stronger. And working capital visibility improves significantly. In practical terms, that means less friction for employees, stronger governance for finance, and faster insight for leadership. So what does that mean? This transformation requires finance leaders. There are 6 shifts I would encourage every organization to think about. Shift that control early in the workflow, make spend visible in real time. Automate the routine. Embed AI into payment execution. Elevate human judgment. And ultimately build financial systems that are adaptive rather than reactive. One exercise I often recommend to finance leaders is very simple. Audit your reactivity. Where are you correcting preventable errors? Where is execution still manual? Where is visibility delayed? And where are experts doing clerical work? Because very often, that's exactly where your next margin opportunity lives. And that's where AI-powered finance begins. I'm moving along really fast here. I'll close with this thought. Confidence is engineered. Agility is designed. And AI is most powerful when it's embedded directly into the systems that run your financial operations. The future of finance isn't more about insight, it's better systems. And with better systems, life is much better for all of us. Thank you guys for your time.
Please raise your hand, and a microphone is going to be brought to you. Any questions in the room? No?
Quick.
Well, thank you very much.
Actually, I do have one question.
Sorry, yeah.
I love the leap that you're making to autonomous execution. How do you handle the data behind that? Because a lot of organizations are dealing with legacy systems where the information may not be as as accurate to support autonomous execution?
Well, when you look at it overall, we're rolling out AI insurance and others, and what we basically look at is your overall TE compliant process. So what is your TE, I'll say, internal compliance processes that we take into account, plus actually other companies that we work with benchmarking-wise to assess basically what it should look like in regards to detection when it comes to TE processing. So like when we match your receipts overall, I've been around a long period of time. In regards to TE processing, it's all kind of the same. It's just basically what your rules from a processing and policies perspective is. I think we talked about it earlier in regards to, okay, if somebody's booking travel, well, you can't book first class. You can't do this, you can't do that. These are pretty much generic across all organizations that we kind of pull in regards to benchmark with multiple organizations in order for us to put the right detecting process in place in order to alleviate someone manually going through that.
Okay, thank you very much.